everybody. Welcome to my Friday Masterclass. Happy weekend. Great to have you all streaming in here. Let me bring up my chat so I can actually see who's joining me live. And as we're waiting for more people to jump in, just wanted to give you guys a heads up that um, today I'm actually starting the celebration this weekend of my 30th anniversary at Adobe. So if you want to see more about that, scan that QR code or screenshot that QR code, and you can go check out the story of my 30-year journey and see lots of photos and look backs and so forth and so on. All right, so with that said, now I'm starting to see all the people stream in or stream in. Nicholas, welcome. Happy Friday as well. Let me just bring up the names here. That would it be easier. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, everyone. And great to see you all coming in. So thank you for joining me here today. And thank you for the congratulations on the 30th anniversary at Adobe. So as more people come in, this should be a quick one. I always say that, even though it never works out to be as quick as I think it should be. We're going to talk about something that's important to everyone that's taken more than one picture of the same thing. And that's really what we're talking about. If you do a photo shoot, or if you just go out on location and you go click, 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 and you get a bunch of shots of the same subject, what we're here to talk about today is how to pick the best shots of that subject. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years for just mindset more than anything, because picking the best shot is obviously subjective. Picking the best shot for who? For you, for the client, for the subject, for the model, so it depends a lot on that as well. So we'll get into just some things to put in the back of your head when you're going through your shots and you're trying to determine which are the keepers and which are the ones that, they're okay, but they're not as good as the other ones. And we'll look at, of course, assisted culling for the beginning of that. But then we'll just get into some straight up tips and tricks on how to use Lightroom to help you, especially when you got 3 or 4 shots that are almost the same, like some tools in there to pick the best one of those 4 or 5 shots that are almost the same. And also just not be afraid to say no. Like, in other words, if a shot is not meeting your criteria, meaning, it's not composed well, if it's not as sharp as it should be, and you've got another shot, don't be afraid to say no to that first one because it's not as good as another one you already have. So with those things in mind, let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my computer here, and I've got Lightroom Classic running. Now, whether you're using Lightroom Classic, Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Mobile doesn't have as many features, but Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Classic, for what I'm going to show you, I think there's only one feature that's not in Lightroom Desktop, but everything else should work across the board. All right, let's start off with a shoot I did back in April. It was just an easy one because I've got, in this particular shoot, if we go over and look, I've got 513 frames in this shot, or this shoot. Now, 513 is actually a little bit on the modest side. I normally come back with around 700, 800, 1,000 frames, 1,500, depending on the shoot. So 500 is really, that's me exercising control and not overshooting. And that's one of my first tips, is that when you're working with a person, you tend to overshoot, or I do. If it's a landscape and you get different angles, you're pretty much okay. I got it. Either I got it or I didn't, and you move on. But when it's a person and they're changing poses and they're changing looks and giving you different expressions, you tend to shoot a lot. And my first piece of advice, especially if the person is going to change outfits, we always overshoot that first outfit because we're getting warmed up, we're having fun. Next thing you know, 30 minutes has gone by and the person hasn't changed outfits. And chances are you got your shot 20 minutes ago. That's not always the case. Of course, you can always get that best shot as the last one in that 30 minutes or that hour, but move on. Like that's my first piece of advice when you're doing a shoot with multiple outfits of a person. Move on to the next outfit and keep shooting because you'll overshoot the first one and run out of time. And you won't, then you'll be rushing through all the other ones, and the other ones might be better outfits. They might be better looks. The person who you're photographing has gotten warmed up now. And so you could be wasting time on that first outfit. So that's first piece of advice. Second piece of advice when you're picking the best shot or shots, you got to ask yourself, who is this for? If the shoot is for you, your portfolio, your website, your ad, whatever it is, if it's for you, that's a lot different than if it's for the client or the person you're photographing, if it's a person. Because I will guarantee 99.9% of the time, photographers pick shots that the person they're photographing would never pick, and vice versa. Because everyone's looking at the shots, and photographers are looking at, did I get a good composition? Is the shot in focus? Is the lighting good? Is the angle right? Was it the right shutter speed? We're looking at the technical details of it. The person's looking at, do I like that look of myself? Do I like that angle of myself? Do I like that smile I gave or didn't give? They're looking at a whole, is my hair not the way I wanted it to be? They're looking at a whole different set of things when they're looking at the shots. So I highly recommend that if you're doing shoots for someone else, but you're going to use some of the shots for your own use, your own portfolio, your own whatever, you pick yours, let them pick theirs. Because unless they've given you 100% freedom to pick the shot and give it to them, chances are the shot you give them is not the one they would have picked. That's all I'm trying to say. So I highly recommend if you're doing a shoot for someone else, especially if they're paying you to do it, you give them a gallery, let them look through them and let them pick their favorites. And then you can, by all means, pick your favorites for your own use, but let them pick their own favorites for their use, because that's really, at the end of the day, going to make them happy. And I was going to tell a story, but anyways, one of my first shoots, I came home, I edited all the shots I thought I loved. I edited a ton of shots. It was like the first time I didn't know what I was doing. And I sent all the shots to the person, and they never used any of them because they weren't the ones that they wanted. They picked other ones that they liked better. They never used any of the 50 shots I did that I picked, because I'm picking them for different reasons. So keep that in mind. Next piece of advice, and then we'll get right into it, is sleep on it. 9 times out of 10, if I go through my shots right after the shoot, and then I go through them again the next day, I'm like, what was I thinking yesterday? Why did I pick this one? Or I'm picking different ones the next day. Look at it with a fresh set of eyes in the morning or the next day, or if you shot early in the morning, maybe later in the day, because you've been looking at the person, the scene, the landscape, the wildlife, whatever, all during the shoot. And sometimes you just need to breathe and take a step back and look at something else for a while, and then come back to the shots and look at them again. So now let's go ahead and dive into these. So these shots, so the first question, who are they for? They were for me. So I can pick whatever I want. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't give the person, this is Krista, I didn't give Krista this gallery for her to pick whichever one she wanted. But the first purpose of this, I needed some shots for demo files, for classes like this, for whatever. So these are all for me. I can do whatever I want. These are my shots. Here's a question here. This is a good question. Let's put this one up here. What are your thoughts if a client asks for some of the unedited raw files? I know this can be a bit of a decisive question. The answer, in my opinion, is no. That would be like you going into a restaurant and saying, I know you cooked this meal for me, but can I have all the ingredients? I want to go do it myself. Nope. The raw file is the negative. If you think back to the film days, photographers never handed their negatives over to someone. They handed prints. Same thing with digital. We don't hand over raw files unless they contractually paid for it. They pay lots of money to get the raw files. By all means, you can have the raw files. But if it's just a regular shoot and because they want to go do their own edits, then my opinion, no. You hired me to do this or you wanted me to do this, I'm going to do this. If you don't think my editing's good enough or whatever, then maybe you should have picked a different photographer that you did think was good enough. So no, you don't get the raw files. Just like the restaurant's not going to give you all the ingredients and say, go make it yourself. All right, so that's my opinion. Other people have different opinions, and I don't consider it decisive or divisive. I think it's, everyone has their workflow and their opinion. All right, next up. So I've got all these shots. They're for me. I can do whatever I want. I gave Krista the gallery. She could pick whichever one she wants out, and I'll be happy to edit them. And by the way, back to that last question, I would ask why. Why do you want the raw files? Because if they say, oh, I want to edit them my way, then I would work on them to figure out what their way is. What do you want to do to them that I'm not doing? So I would have a conversation as to why they want the raw files. But no, they can't have the raw files. All right, next up. Let's keep going. So I've got these 513. So it used to be before assisted culling, I would go do this. I would hit, here, let's go back to this. I would hit full screen. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I would just go through every single frame and decide which ones I'm going to pick. And I would use keyboard shortcuts to mark them. So whether it's a color label, a star rating, or a flag, I would mark them with my keyboard as I'm going through them. Before, like I said, that's what I used to do before. Now my first step is over to assisted culling. Because assisted culling is going to let me quickly, faster than I could do it manually, eliminate the ones that don't meet certain criteria. So what I mean by that is if a shot's out of focus, I got to look at it and see if it's out of focus. If a shot has her eyes closed, I got to look at it and see if her eyes are closed, whereas this can do all that for me. This is not picking your best shot. This is picking the ones that don't meet your criteria. So a lot of people get hung up on assisted culling. Well, I don't want the computer picking my shots. It's not. It's picking the ones that don't meet whatever settings you set. So if I go over to assisted culling and I say that, hey, I want the subject to be in focus. And then I can pick an amount for how in focus I want them to be. So it defaults to 50, 50, 50, so 50%. I can say, nope, I really want them to be in focus. So I can make it up to 70, or I can put it all the way up to 100, whatever. And then what it will start to do is, if you look down here in the lower right-hand corner, it says, okay, 471 of the 513 match your focus setting. 23 are rejects, meaning 23 don't meet that score. That's all it means. So if I make the score higher, I'm probably going to get less. Yep, now 124 don't meet my 80 or 90, whatever I just set it to, criteria. So that's all assisted culling's doing for you. Now, I know there are a lot of people that shoot other things besides people. If you're photographing landscapes, if you're photographing travel, if you're photographing wildlife, if you're photographing other subjects, assisted culling is not going to offer you a lot today. It's pretty, because eye focus, eyes open, all the other things are mainly around people, humans. But subject focus is subject focus. So if your subject's in focus, that at least helps you with that, even if the rest doesn't apply, like to a landscape. Eyes open on a mountain doesn't matter. So I still say assisted culling, if you do nothing else but subject focus, can help you there. All right, next up, eyes focus. This is very important to me. I want the eyes to be in focus. So I'm going to crank that up to 90. And again, I got rid of 100. And you can start to see that, not get rid of. It marked ones that don't meet that criteria. So in this case, when I hover over this one, It says the subject's in focus, 92%. The eye focus only scored 73 out of my 90 that I chose. So again, you pick whatever that score is for you. Eyes open. So you could catch a person in mid blink. Obviously, I want to look at those to make sure that the person wasn't just being expressive. Some people close their eyes when they laugh. They close their eyes when they smile big. So eyes open isn't always a cut and dry yes or no. Those are ones I do need to look at, because are the eyes open by mistake, or closed by mistake? Or are the eyes closed because of the natural expression of the person in that moment? Now, exposure issues. These are usually like flash didn't fire, or flash was overexposed, or whatever, in my case with flashes, and misfires. Misfires are, you shot the ground, you shot the ceiling, you accidentally clicked and got the person's feet and you weren't trying to get their feet, so forth and so on. And last but not least, I never really need to use, because documents, that's mainly for people that photograph things on their phone and they might have used their camera to scan a document or take a picture of a receipt. So say, I'll just eliminate the documents from your shoots. I don't have that with using my regular camera. I don't have that as an issue. So now it's saying out of the 513, 335 are selects. So 335 meet my criteria. 159 don't. Those are the ones I'm concerned about. I know these are good. I still got to go through these and pick out my best shots, my favorite ones of these, but these are the ones that are question marks now. So what I would do with the question marks is I would go look at them. I would click on rejects and now I would go through these with a fine tooth comb and say, or just even a quick glance and say, is it right? Like, for example, and if you'd like, well, what was wrong with it? If you hover over it, it'll tell you, oh, the eyes don't meet the score. Oh, this one, I don't know why this one should be eyes are open. I don't know why that one got marked, because that one is not failing any of the criteria. So in this case, this looks like a mistake. I'm just going to go ahead and mark that as a select. Oh, it could be an exposure issue. That's what that probably was, because it was dark. Eyes focus, so forth and so on. So you could do a quick scan of the thumbnails. You could go through them one by one. You could zoom in on them. Some of these I had already marked as rejects with the reject flag, because I knew they were rejects the minute I saw them the first time, like this one, exposure issue, so forth and so on. This one, she's looking down. I caught her mid changing pose. So if there are ones where you're questioning and you're saying, let me go to one where I'm not going to go through these one by one, but let's say I go to this one and I hover over this one and it says eye focus. And I look at it and I maybe zoom in on it. And I say to myself, the eye sharpness, 88 out of 90. I really like this shot. I'm going to override you, computer, and say, yeah, I know it's not 90, but it's good enough. I'm going to mark it as a select. So next thing people usually say at this point is, well, that's not saving me any time if I still got to go look at them. Sure it is, because you only had to look at the rejects. The other ones are good. These are the ones you're verifying aren't as good as you say you want it. So you quickly verify, are they still okay enough? Maybe I need to change my score down because it's picking too many that I would say are okay. So you're spending time just verifying that the ones that it said don't meet your score aren't good enough. And if they are, you can override it. If they aren't, you're done. Now you got your 337 in my case that are good. So yes, it saves me time because it does this part for me that I used to have to go through one by one on all of them. And I may miss, are the eyes really in focus? I may miss, is the subject really sharp? I may miss, maybe I miss even, are the eyes even open? I may miss it. So this helps me quickly look at the ones that don't meet my criteria and then go from there. Now, what do I mean by go from there? Okay, so we know these 337 either all match my criteria or the ones I overrode and put back in here. So now I got 337 that aren't an issue. Although I would consider that an exposure issue. Did I mark the exposure issues? Oh, I left it on default. That's why. So let me go to strict. There we go. I took it out. Okay. Now I got my 339 because I took out the ones that I moved the slider. I made the score harder. I'd be very strict on that. Okay, so now I got my 339 in this case that are selects. So I go to my selects, and the next thing I want to do is I want to organize the results. Now, I do want to point out one more feature for those in a hurry, because maybe you're in a hurry and you want to have Lightroom help you decide when it's multiple shots that are similar. I don't usually want that because I do want to look at them, but if you did, you can go to auto stacking and you can auto stack by visual similarity. So in other words, the shots where the poses are very much the same or less, you can have it stack them together. And when it makes the stack, so in this case, 22 of these are the same, for example, or similar, it put what it thought was the best one on top. Again, you don't have to agree with it, but that's what it put on top. I don't usually use this. It's because I still want to go through and look at them. But if I were in a hurry and I'm just trying to find a good shot and maybe I'm still going to go look at them later, then I might use this to stack them and put what it thinks is the best of the stack on top. I can still look at it, still look at the stack, so forth and so on. But I don't use this because I still want to look at them. So now I go to my selects. What I do use is auto batch. So now that I got my selects, I want to auto batch those selects, those 339, into a new collection. So we're going to create a collection. We're going to call this one Krista April 2026 selects. All right, and put in that collection set. Yes, that's the collection is going to go in. You can also apply flags, ratings, color labels, so forth and so on. I still want to go through them individually before I do any of that, but that will now build a new collection. So my 513 are still in the original collection, but now my new collection of the 339 over here are the selects. These are the ones that I know don't have any of those other issues that we used assisted culling for. And at this point, I'm done with assisted culling. I can turn that off now. I don't need to look at any of that because now I'm in the ones that met my criteria that passed the test. Now I do go through them one by one and look. But let me show you some other things to think about. Let me just make sure I'm also not missing my note here. Yep. Okay. They're my new collection. And I don't have to examine them with a fine-tooth comb. What I'm looking for now are the ones where they're very similar. Remember the auto stacking? I like to do it manually, where I choose which one's the better one of the 3, 4, 5, 10, 11 that are similar. Let me go find a grouping that is like that. Okay. For example, these 3, or maybe these 4. These 4 are similar. Each one's different, but they're similar. They all kind of like are from the same themes. She's kind of all smiling on all of them. She's got her hands on her shoulders on all of them or up to her face. And I kind of want to pick maybe the best one of those 4. Typical example. You got 5, 6, 8 that are similar. And now you want to pick the best one of the similar ones. So what would I do here? Do I go through them one by one? Oh, if I go, okay, so the uneducated way to do it would be, oh, that one's good. That one's good. Oh, do I like the first one better than this one? Then you go back. Oh, no, I like that one. So we don't want to keep doing that back and forth, especially when you got more than a few, trying to remember, was it number 5 that was better or 6 that was better? Was it number 12 that was better than number 2? We don't want to do that. So we can do this one of 2 ways. Remember I said there was one feature that wasn't in Lightroom Desktop? This is that one feature. Lightroom Classic has a survey mode. If you go to, I believe it's under View. Yep. If you go to your View menu, it's the letter N on your keyboard for a keyboard shortcut. But if you just either go to the menu under view and choose survey, or just do an N on the keyboard, it will go into this mode when you've got 2 or more photos selected. I don't know why you would do it 2. So let's say 3 or more photos selected. Now what this lets me do, especially if I hit my tab key to move some of those panels out of the way, it lets me narrow these down to just those 4. I don't have any surrounding pictures to look at. And now I can look at them bigger. And then I can say, well, which one of these, what I start doing is the elimination, just like on a reality show. Okay, who didn't make the cut? So now I'm looking for, out of these 4, okay, you'd have to give yourself a what do you call it? Not selective, but you got a critical eye, and you got to say, okay, if you were going to submit these in a photo contest, which one wouldn't you submit? In other words, which one isn't as good as the other 3? And I like them all, I do, but I'm going to say, just again, for example, I say, well, you know, this one is the weak, again, example, this one's the weakest of the 4. So there's a little X. You click the little X, it just takes it out of the selection. It's still there in the group. Now you're down to the 3. Okay, which one would be the weakest of the 3? I'd probably go and say this one is. And again, this is just, I'm just making this up as I go along. Okay, so now we're down to 2. Which one's the strongest of the 2? And see, it's easier to see them when they keep getting bigger. So you see them side by side, and then you can help make that decision. It'll help you make that decision of which one of these you like better. I'm going to say I like the one on the left better. Okay, so then that leaves me with just that one. And just that one, you've got your star ratings at the bottom. You've got your pick flag over on the left. You've got your, I forgot what that one, oh, that's it. So for example, maybe I'll make that one a 5-star. So that one becomes a 5-star. That just reminds me that I really like this one of that grouping. And maybe if you saw a really bad one in that grouping, you would mark that as a reject, because you're never going to use that one. So get rid of that one as a reject. Okay, so now I go back, hit my tab key again to bring back the panels. And now I know I got that one out of the 4. So that's one way to do it, survey mode. The other way to do it is compare mode. Compare is that instead of seeing 4 or 8 or 12 at one time, you're always only seeing 2, and you're making your decision between the 2. So let's go find another grouping. Let's say I want to start here. Okay, so I'll select those 2. And I'll go to hit the letter C for compare mode. Now, again, none of these have had adjustments, so I know there's exposure issues and all that, but I'm not looking at what I could adjust. I'm looking at the overall shot, composure, or composition. Like her feet are cut off on the one on the left, so I wouldn't pick that one. So you notice up here it says select and candidate. So right now, you're saying this one on the left is the select of the 2 so far. I'm going to say it's not, because I won't use that one with her toes cut off. So I'm going to go ahead and say down here at the bottom, you have a choice. You can either make the one on the right the select, or you can toggle them, just switch them. I know I don't want this one on the left, so I don't have to bother with that. I'm just going to make the one on the right the select. Then you'll notice the next candidate becomes the next shot in the gallery. So then I can say, oh, okay, between these 2, oh my God, yeah, the one on the right's much better than the one on the left. Make that the new candidate or the new select. Then it goes to the next one. And then you can just, you don't have to choose at this point. You can say, nope, the one on the left is still better. Go to the next one. Nope, the one on the left is still better. Go to the next one. Nope, the one on the left is still better. Nope. So now you're just going through the rest until you see one that's better than the select. If not, that becomes the select. So I can say, oh, you know what? I do like this one better than the current select. Let's switch it. Or not switch it, but use it. Okay, so now that one becomes the select. Nope, nope. Ooh, I kind of like that one, but nope, 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 nope. We got silly. Oh, and this one, her eyes are weird. They're not closed. Oh, I already marked it as, I was going to say, I was going to mark it as reject. They're not closed, but they're not open either. So nope, 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 nope. Ooh, okay, maybe. And then we keep going. So that's what compare lets you do. It literally lets you compare shots side by side. So you can just look at those two and decide which of the ones you're going through is the better one. All right. So someone's saying, what if my Lightroom's not showing the X and the Y at the bottom? You mean like that? Mine's gone too. Hit the letter T on your keyboard to bring up the toolbar. Got it. So the T brings up the toolbar to let you see the things at the bottom. All right. And by the way, you can zoom in. So if you need to like zoom in, and I like it because it zooms them in. Oh, and see, I can see her eyes aren't quite open on this one because I zoomed in. I wasn't paying attention. So no, that's not going to be the select because her eyes are mid blink. So in that case, that's why zooming is important. Let's use that one instead. And then we keep going. So I like the zoom because it does them like in stereo. It zooms them up at the same time. All right. Next up. Okay. Let's say you've gone through all that now. And how do you determine, or not how do you determine, we've already figured out how you determine. How do you keep track of the better ones, in your opinion, the ones you liked better? Lightroom gives you 3 ways to do that: flags, color labels, stars. So I already showed you, I think one of them I already did a 5-star on earlier. Yeah, there it is. So there's my 5-star one. I personally use color labels because they're different colors. It lets me assign colors for different purposes. What I mean by that is, if I mark a picture green, that means I liked it. If I mark a picture blue, that means the client was standing next to me as we were looking at reviewing the shots before they left the studio. They liked it. Like, they might be, and that might not be the one they pick, but in that moment, they liked it. If I'm standing next to me on the other side is the stylist, makeup artist, whoever person helped assist with the shoot, and they liked it, then it becomes a yellow. So I've just basically made up these arbitrary color references so that I know when I filter on greens, those are my favorites. So I know which ones I want to use potentially in my portfolio or edit and share on social media or make a carousel with on Instagram, so forth and so on. So I just use that color. I use that color system because it makes it easy. Now, why don't I use pick flags? I do, but just not for this. I reserve pick flags for the client. In other words, I've gone through, I've marked all the ones I liked as green. Now I've sent the gallery off to Krista, and Krista comes back with 10 she liked. I come back to this gallery and I mark hers with a pick flag. So that way it doesn't overwrite mine. Maybe she likes this one too that I have as green. So I hit, I didn't mean to go full screen. I hit the, meant to hit the flag on that one. And so now it's a flag and a green. That way I can still have them both. One doesn't overwrite the other one. So I like it and she picked it. So that's a winner. That's one we're definitely going to use because we both agree on it. We both like it. It happens. It's rare, but we can agree. Why not stars? Sometimes I do. Rarely though, like, because you got to think about, okay, you got stars 1 through 5. What's a 1? A 1 to me is to be deleted. It's a reject. I already have a reject flag for that. What's a 2? It's almost as bad. So in other words, 1 and 2 don't really mean much to me because if I'm rating a photo a 1 or 2, I'm taking the time to do that, I'll just reject it because it means it's not great. I'm never going to use it. Why keep a 1 or a 2? 3, 4, and 5. I used to look at as good, better, best. So in those situations where before I was using Survey, where I'd have 3 or 4 photos that were almost the same, well, maybe the 5 is the best one of that group, the 4 is the next best one, and the 3 is the next best one. So I could, again, all of these methods are for, there's no set rule. They're for you to decide how you want to use them. So I look at stars as 3, 4, 5, good, better, best. 1 or 2, I don't even waste my time with, because if it's a 1 or a 2, I'm going to delete it. It's not worth keeping. And I don't really use a bunch of stars in my work. But like I said, color labels for me was great, because then I can just immediately, so let's say, for example, I'm just going to show you how it works. Let's say that I like this one. So I hit the number 8 because that makes it green. Let's say, again, I'm just randomly picking them now just to show you an example. I already picked that one. And let's say I really like this one. And now let's say, there we go. Let's say that Krista really liked this one. So that would be, I believe, a 9. A 9 is blue. Let's say she really liked this one. A 9 is blue. So I'm just hitting the number 9 on my keyboard. Let's say she really liked that one. So now I've got a mixture of blues and greens all throughout this gallery. When it comes to go time, it's time for me to actually take those photos that I picked and edit them. So then I would go to my attributes, and I would say, show me all the greens. Oh, there they are. And I did pick a bunch of greens. They're already here. So these are my favorites, including the few I just picked that really aren't my favorites. But these are my favorites. These are the ones I really liked. So now that I know which ones I really like, let me get out of the greens. Let me go to the blues. Those are the ones she really liked. So that's why I like the color labels. And if there had been any selects that she made, let me show me all the pick flags. Those are the ones that she actually wants edited, or the client paid for, or whatever. Whatever your methodology is for determining a client chosen photo. I use pick flags for that. And I could say, show me all the 5 stars. And again, show me all the 4s or greater. And yep, there's a 4 in there. Show me all the 3s or greater. There aren't going to be any 2s or 1s, because I don't use 2s or 1s. So you can do that as well. So let's say that I want all my greens. Now what? So these are my favorites of this shoot. That's all this means. So I'm going to select all of those, because I don't want to have to keep coming back to this and hitting green every time. I'm going to go over to my collections, and I'm going to make one more new collection, including those photos that I just selected. And we're going to call this Krista April 2026 edits, because these are the ones I'm going to edit. These are my favorites, or maybe hers get mixed in there too. But those become the 24. I'm not going to really do all 24, but those will become the 24 shots that I would either potentially edit or potentially share on social media. Now, I could go back and say, you know what? Let me also get hers in there too. Let's go back to the main gallery and let's get all the blues. Show me not the greens, but show me the blues. And I can just drag those into the edits as well. So now those are the 27 photos if I were to edit, but I would definitely pick hers. And also, by the way, show me the pics. So I'll throw the pics in there, definitely, not the blues, the pics, because the blues were just, they liked it in the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the photo they actually really want. So I really don't put the blues in here. I put the pics in here. But the blue just gave you an example of how you could use this. So let's say we get rid of the blues. We're just getting rid of them out of this collection. And then we go back to the originals and we say, give me the pics as well. Attribute, and we want the pics. All right, I throw the pics in there as well, because now we're really talking about my favorites and the ones she chose. Those are the potential edits. We're obviously going to edit the ones she chose, and out of these other 24, I can pick and choose which ones I want to share at any given time, because these were all my favorites. That's how I do this. All right, can you create a custom color tag outside of the default colors assigned in Lightroom? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. In Lightroom desktop, which just got color labels, they definitely made that a feature where you could make your own colors in addition to these. What I'm trying to remember is in Lightroom Classic is if you edit the colors. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Uh, yeah, you can make your own. Yes, you can make your own preset. I was just trying to remember if you could add. That's what I was trying to get to. Because in Lightroom Desktop, you get the 5 or 6 colors that are default, but you can add as many of your own as you want. You can call them whatever you want. In Lightroom Classic, so if I say, for example, that green means Terry and blue means client, okay, cool. And now notice it says Lightroom default has been edited. And by the way, let's say that I don't really yeah, it's not going to let me pick a different color. Lightroom Desktop lets you actually pick a new color. This is just going to let me rename these. And then I can go in and I can say, save these new current settings as Terry's preset. Okay, so then that becomes my preset of colors. But I just couldn't remember if we allowed you to make your own colors themselves. And because there was that became an issue where if you made the colors in Bridge and you brought them up, like it just became weird. Let me see the Bridge default, by the way. Okay, so in Bridge, the defaults was different names. Select second, approved, review, to do, and then my own are Terry, client, makeup artist, and then I can say update preset. Okay, so now I got my own list with my own naming. So thank you for reminding me to do that. But no, you can't actually make, or at least I can't see a way to do it here to change the colors. Let me see if I'm missing something here. Yeah, I don't see a way to actually change the colors here. And if you guys know of a way, put it in the comments. I thought there used to be a way to do that, but I haven't looked at that in years. All right. Here's another question coming up. Do you also have a tutorial? You know, this question comes up all the time. As a matter of fact, even when I'm asking AI for a topic, like give me an idea for a topic, it always says color grading. I'm like, I'm not a color grading expert, which is the problem. So I don't want to teach you something that I don't feel like I'm the best at, or I'm not even the best at. Just something I'm like a science or something I really studied. I can tell you how to adjust colors all day long, but when you say color grading, that's to me that's taking it up a notch. So maybe I'll get there and then provide that tutorial at some point or that masterclass. I'm just not there yet. I don't feel comfortable enough to do it, to feel like an authority enough to share it. So that's why. All right. So let's get out of that. And that is it for me today. So welcome those of you who joined me for the first time. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe the video, subscribe to the channel by all means, because that helps the channel, helps me stay motivated, and also trying to get to 500K by the end of the year. So I'm at 497 something always. Like it always goes up and down, never goes higher. I need to go higher. And if you want to take a look at my look back for the last 30 years, lots of pictures from the old days, lots of pictures of people you probably know. Just go ahead and scan that QR code. So with that said, cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.